All right, let's talk about one of the most enigmatic and misunderstood artifacts in the entire galaxy, the Golden Throne. This colossal machine, hidden deep within the heart of the Imperial Palace on Terra, stands as both a monument to human perseverance and a grim symbol of the Emperor's eternal burden. It's a relic that has defined the fate of humanity for 10,000 years, the very seat from which the Master of Mankind holds his silent, unending vigil over the Imperium. But what if this towering, ancient mechanism is more than just a life support system for a dying god? What if its true purpose extends far beyond merely keeping the Emperor alive into the very fabric of reality itself? For many, the Golden Throne is a necessary evil, a tragic requirement for the survival of humanity. Without it, the Astronomicon would flicker and die. The beacon that guides every human ship across the void of space would be extinguished, and the vast empire of humanity would be left blind and vulnerable to the horrors lurking in the darkness. But what if the throne is more than this? What if it is not just a prison for a crippled god, but a gateway? A bridge between realms that the Emperor himself sought to control. Some whisper that the throne's original purpose has been lost, obscured by 10 millennia of war, decay, and dogmatic ignorance. That perhaps it was never meant to merely sustain the Emperor, but to serve as a conduit for his unfathomable psychic power, a power that reaches into the heart of the immaterium itself. Could it be that the throne, this ancient, creaking monstrosity of wires, golden plating, and human sacrifice, is actually the key to controlling the very fabric of reality? In this series, we're going to dive deep into the forgotten history of the Golden Throne, peeling back the layers of myth and legend to uncover the truth behind this mysterious device. From the secret projects of the Emperor's grand vision to the haunting whispers of its true purpose, we'll explore every hidden corner of this colossal artifact and question whether it might, in fact, be the galaxy's most dangerous doorway to the warp. All right, if we want to understand the true purpose of the Golden Throne, we first need to step back and consider why it was built in the first place. It's easy to fall into the trap of seeing it merely as a life support system for the Emperor, but that perspective is painfully narrow. To the followers of the Imperial Creed, the throne is a holy relic, the seat of a god. But for those who look deeper into its origins, it becomes something far more complex, a machine born from the dreams of a man who sought to reshape the galaxy itself. The Golden Throne was not constructed as a mere medical device. Its origins are rooted in the Emperor's grand vision for humanity. He didn't rise to power simply to conquer the stars. He sought to liberate humanity from the chains of superstition, fear, and ignorance. The throne, then, was never meant to just sustain his physical form. It was designed as a tool to reshape reality itself, a keystone in his plan to remove mankind's dependence on the warp for faster-than-light travel. To understand this, you have to look at the Emperor's masterwork, the Webway project. The throne was initially intended as the control mechanism for a vast human-built webway network, an artificial corridor through the fabric of reality that would have connected all human worlds without the need for dangerous warp travel. This project, if completed, would have forever severed mankind's reliance on the immaterium, cutting off the chaos gods from their prey. It was a bold and ambitious plan, perhaps the boldest in all of human history, but it required a level of technology and psychic power that bordered on the impossible. What's truly fascinating is that the Emperor, even at the height of his power, understood the risks of directly interacting with the warp. He knew that the chaos gods, ancient and insidious, would strike at any sign of weakness. So he crafted the throne not only as a portal controller, but as a barrier, a bulwark against the endless hunger of the immaterium. Its systems are said to be so complex, so intertwined with both science and psychic power, that even the most gifted tech priests of Mars struggle to comprehend its full design. Some whisper that the throne's mechanisms contain pieces of lost, Dark Age technology, fragments of the knowledge once possessed by humanity before the coming of Old Night. There are those who believe that the throne's purpose extends beyond even the Webway project, that it may have been intended as a failsafe against something far more terrifying than mere mortal enemies. Perhaps the Emperor foresaw the danger of his own fall, the potential for his body to fail while his mind remained bound to the physical world. In that light, the throne might be seen as a psychic anchor, a device capable of holding his spirit in the materium, even after his body has decayed to a husk. And here's where things get truly unsettling. If the throne was designed to contain and focus the psychic essence of a being as powerful as the Emperor, could it not also be capable of something more? Some speculate that it might be a prototype for a machine capable of bridging the gap between the physical and the metaphysical, a device that can both contain and project the raw, untamed power of the immaterium itself. If that's true, then perhaps the throne is not just a prison for the Emperor's shattered form, but a gateway, one that he alone has the power to control. In the end, we're left with more questions than answers. The throne's origins are shrouded in mystery, its purpose obscured by 10 millennia of blood, fire, and ignorance. But one thing is clear. It is far more than a mere life support system. It is a machine of impossible power, a technological paradox, and perhaps the final hope of a dying god clinging to a broken empire. When you dig deeper into the history of the Golden Throne, you inevitably come across one of the Emperor's most ambitious and tragically unfinished projects, the human webway. To truly grasp the scope of this endeavor, you have to understand what the warp is and why it's both humanity's greatest tool and its most dangerous curse. The warp is an alternate dimension, a place of pure psychic energy where the laws of physics twist and break. It's a realm of madness, inhabited by the raw emotions and psychic echoes of every living thing in the galaxy, and it's infested with ancient malevolent entities that would see all mortal life destroyed or enslaved. For millennia, humanity has used the warp for faster-than-light travel, carving paths through this nightmare realm with the flickering light of the Astronomicon as their only guide. But this method is fraught with danger, and countless lives have been lost to the horrors that dwell within. The Emperor, in his unmatched wisdom, sought to change this. He envisioned a galaxy where humanity could travel freely without risking its very soul. To achieve this, he needed to sever humanity's reliance on the warp, and that meant building a new path, a safer, cleaner, more controlled way to traverse the galaxy. This is where the webway comes in. The concept was not new. The ancient Eldari, one of the most powerful and advanced races in galactic history, had already mastered this art long before humanity first looked to the stars. Their webway is a vast, interconnected network of tunnels and pathways that exist outside normal space, shielded from the corrupting touch of the warp by unimaginable technology and psychic barriers. It's a place where starships can sail without fear of demonic assault, where time and distance bend to the will of the traveler. But the Emperor's vision was even more ambitious. He didn't just want to copy the Eldari's creation. He wanted to surpass it, to forge a human webway that would span the galaxy, connecting every world of his growing imperium. It was a project of breathtaking scope, a testament to his unmatched intellect and ambition. He sought to create a realm where mankind could travel freely, without the risk of demonic incursion, where the light of human civilization could shine without fear of the darkness beyond. Of course, this was no simple task. The Emperor's human webway would have required unimaginable amounts of psychic power, technology, and sheer willpower to maintain. It demanded a central control point, a hub through which all the energy and guidance could be channeled. And this is where the Golden Throne comes into the picture. The throne was never meant to be just a seat for a crippled god. It was intended as the master control for this entire network, the anchor point that would allow the Emperor to guide and protect his empire from the heart of Terra itself. But like so many of the Emperor's grand visions, this project was doomed to failure. The construction of the human webway was fraught with peril from the start. Even with his godlike power, the Emperor could not shield his project from the predatory eyes of the warp. Demons and dark entities sensed the disturbance, the breach in their domain, and they struck back with fury. The resulting conflict shattered the Emperor's grand dream, flooding his carefully constructed passages with the taint of chaos. The webway tore open, becoming a battleground, a nightmare realm of clashing psychic forces and bleeding realities. What makes this even more tragic is that, had the Emperor succeeded, it might have forever broken the power of the Chaos Gods. Without the warp to feed their insatiable hunger for mortal souls, they might have withered into irrelevance, their power fading into the void. But that future was stolen, ripped from humanity's grasp by the howling madness of the Immaterium. And so, the throne, once a shining beacon of hope, became something far darker, a desperate, eternal prison for a god who failed to protect his own creation. The collapse of the Emperor's webway project stands as one of the most catastrophic and tragic failures in the history of the Imperium. To truly grasp the impact of this disaster, you have to imagine the sheer scale of his ambition. The Emperor wasn't just trying to win a war or conquer a few star systems. He was attempting to sever humanity's reliance on the warp entirely, to build a secure, stable realm where his children could flourish without the constant threat of demonic corruption. It was a dream born from a place of both hubris and hope, a testament to his unmatched genius and unyielding determination to guide humanity toward a brighter future. But the fall of the webway shattered that dream. The project's collapse wasn't just a physical failure. It was a spiritual wound, a betrayal of the Emperor's deepest ambitions. The breach in the webway exposed his carefully constructed pathways to the raw, unrestrained fury of the Immaterium. It unleashed a tide of madness and horror that even the most battle-hardened warriors of the Imperium struggled to comprehend. Demons poured through the cracks, their howls echoing through the shattered corridors, twisting reality itself as they clawed their way into the heart of the Emperor's grand design. In that moment, the Emperor must have realized the full weight of his own hubris. He had attempted to control the uncontrollable, to master the very fabric of reality, and in doing so, he had invited the wrath of the gods themselves. The Webway project, which should have been his crowning achievement, became his greatest failure. And yet, even in the face of this disaster, he did not retreat. Instead, he made a decision that would forever change the fate of humanity. He chose to sacrifice himself, to bind his psychic essence to the Golden Throne, transforming it from a mere control device into a prison, a fortress, and a weapon all at once. What's remarkable is that this transformation of the throne was never planned. It was a desperate last-minute improvisation, a patchwork solution to a crisis that threatened to consume the entire human race. The Emperor, for all his foresight, had not intended to become a living corpse, chained to his own creation for all eternity. But as the walls of his great work cracked and the howling winds of the warp began to tear through reality itself, he had no choice. Some say that the Golden Throne is now more than just a machine, that it has become a part of the Emperor himself, a physical extension of his will and his fury. They claim that the throne, infused with his psychic essence, has become something far darker and more powerful than even its creator intended. Perhaps it is no longer just a gateway to the webway, but a device capable of shaping reality itself, a machine that can bend the very laws of physics and twist the fabric of time and space. Others whisper that the Emperor, in his eternal agony, has become a god in truth, his soul bound to the throne, his mind spread across the countless billions of psychers who burn themselves to ash in his service every day. If that's true, then the throne is not just a technological marvel, but a living, breathing thing, a construct of metal and flesh and tortured souls, powered by the boundless rage and unending will of a dying god. But there's a darker possibility as well, one that few dare to speak of openly. What if the throne in its current form is a trap, not for the demons of the warp, but for the Emperor himself? What if, in binding himself to this ancient creaking machine, he has condemned himself to a fate worse than death, a fate where his soul is forever bound to a rotting shell, unable to truly die, unable to find peace, and unable to escape the eternal torment of his own making. In the end, the fall of the Webway project turned the Golden Throne into something far more than it was ever meant to be. It became a tomb, a prison, and perhaps even a god machine, a device that bridges the gap between life and death, between the physical and the metaphysical, between the light of reason and the darkness of the immaterium. And as long as the Emperor remains bound to its iron throne, the fate of humanity will remain forever intertwined with his. All right, if there's one thing that sets the Golden Throne apart from every other piece of technology in the galaxy, it's the sheer incomprehensible complexity of its design. This is not just another relic of the dark age of technology or a particularly advanced piece of mechanicum engineering. It's something far stranger, a hybrid of science and psychic power that defies even the most basic understanding of human technology. In fact, many tech priests, even those with centuries of experience in the mysteries of the Omnissiah, regard the throne as something almost alive, a machine with a soul of its own, bound to the will of a god. The throne systems are so far beyond the understanding of the average mechanicus adept that even attempting to repair it can lead to catastrophic failure. Some whisper that it contains fragments of lost human knowledge, shards of forbidden science from the days before the men of iron rose up and nearly destroyed humanity. Others believe that its core functions rely not on mere metal and circuits, but on the captured psychic energy of countless human souls, woven together into a living, screaming web of agony and faith. If that's true, then the throne isn't just a machine. It's a weapon, a psychic amplifier capable of focusing the Emperor's will like a lens, bending reality itself to his command. But what truly sets the throne apart is its ability to interact directly with the immaterium. Unlike any other piece of human technology, it seems to possess a direct link to the warp, a connection that allows the Emperor to project his psychic presence across the galaxy, guiding the Astronomicon and shielding humanity from the predations of the Chaos Gods. This alone would be enough to make it the single most important device in human history, but there are hints that its true power goes far beyond even this. Some theorize that the throne's mechanisms are capable of manipulating the very fabric of reality, bending the laws of physics in ways that even the Eldar or Necrons would find difficult to comprehend. It's been suggested that the throne's core contains a fragment of the same technology that once allowed the Old Ones to shape entire worlds and bend the flow of time itself. If that's true, then the Emperor might have tapped into a force far more ancient and dangerous than even he realized, a power that could reshape the galaxy itself if unleashed. But this power comes at a cost. The throne systems are not merely complex, they are unstable, prone to catastrophic failure if even a single component is damaged or misaligned. It's said that the tech priests who tend to the throne live in constant fear of triggering a chain reaction that could bring the entire structure crashing down around them, burying the Emperor in a storm of psychic backlash that would shatter his mind and burn his soul to ash. And that's assuming the throne itself doesn't rebel against its masters. There are those who whisper that the throne has a mind of its own, a fractured, half-mad intelligence that resents its creators and seeks to break free from its iron shackles. Perhaps the most disturbing theory is that the throne is not just a machine, but a prison, a device designed to contain not just the Emperor's physical form, but his very soul. If that's true, then the throne isn't just a life support system or a psychic amplifier, but a cage, a trap designed to hold the Emperor's mind in place even as his body decays to dust. This would explain why the throne requires a constant, unending supply of psychers to sustain it, why its mechanisms grind and groan under the weight of 1,000 screaming souls, and why the Emperor himself seems to grow more distant and alien with each passing century. And yet, despite all this, the throne endures. It remains the heart of the Imperium, the keystone upon which all human civilization rests, a relic of a forgotten age, and a promise of a brighter future that may never come. But the question remains, Is it a tool of salvation, a weapon of unimaginable power, or a ticking time bomb waiting to tear the very fabric of reality apart when its ancient circuits finally fail? When you start to dig into the darker theories about the Golden Throne, one of the most unsettling ideas you'll encounter is the warp gate theory. It's a concept that sends chills down the spines of even the most hardened tech priests and terrifies those few who dare to ponder the true nature of the throne's power. This theory suggests that the throne isn't just a life support machine, a psychic amplifier, or even a control console for the human webway. Instead, it's a portal, a direct gateway into the heart of the immaterium, a place where reality itself bends and breaks under the weight of raw, uncontrolled emotion. Now, this might sound like the stuff of dark legends and fringe conspiracy, but there are hints, whispers in the dark corners of the Mechanicum's data vaults that suggest this theory might hold more than a grain of truth. To understand why this idea is so terrifying, you first need to grasp the nature of the warp itself. It's not just an alternate dimension. It's a nightmare, a realm of pure psychic energy, where the thoughts and emotions of living beings take on physical form. It's a place where gods and monsters dwell, where time has no meaning, and where the laws of physics crumble into chaos. The very idea that the throne could be a gateway to this realm is deeply unsettling, not just because of the inherent dangers of the warp itself, but because it suggests that the Emperor, in his infinite ambition, might have created a device capable of bridging the gap between the physical universe and this psychic abyss. If true, this would make the throne one of the most dangerous artifacts in the galaxy, a weapon of unimaginable power and potential destruction. Supporters of the warp gate theory often point to the throne's strange, almost organic design as evidence for their claims. Unlike the cold, mechanical devices typically associated with the Mechanicum, the throne seems to possess a strange, almost living quality, its circuits pulsing with a dark, unnatural energy that defies easy explanation. Some even claim that the throne's core is a living thing, a sentient construct capable of channeling the raw power of the warp itself. If that's true, then the throne might not just be a machine, but a living, breathing thing, a creature of metal and flesh bound to the will of a dying god. Others look to the throne's connection to the Astronomicon as further proof of its hidden power. The Astronomicon, that great psychic beacon that guides human ships across the stars, is powered directly by the Emperor's will, its light burning like a distant sun in the endless void of the warp. But what if this isn't just a metaphor? What if the throne itself acts as a conduit, a channel through which the Emperor's mind reaches out into the warp, bending its chaotic tides to his will and shaping the very fabric of reality itself? And then there are the rumors of strange phenomena around the throne itself. Tech priests have whispered of flickering shadows that move without light, of whispering voices that echo through the golden halls of the imperial palace, of sudden, inexplicable chills that sweep through the throne room like the breath of some ancient, slumbering beast. These might be nothing more than the overactive imaginations of frightened men, but they might also be something far darker. The echoes of a living gateway, a portal that opens and closes in time with the Emperor's ragged, tortured breaths. Of course, there are those who dismiss this theory as pure madness, the fevered delusions of those who spend too much time staring into the abyss of the immaterium. They argue that the throne is too heavily guarded, too tightly bound to the Emperor's will to ever serve as a true warp gate. But even these skeptics can't deny the strange, almost otherworldly aura that surrounds the throne, the sense of power and danger that clings to its every rusted bolt and whispering cable. So, is the Golden Throne a warp gate? Is it a bridge between the physical and the psychic, a door to the madness that lies beyond the veil of reality? Or is it something even stranger, a machine whose true purpose has been lost to the shadows of history and the madness of 10,000 years of war? It's a question that may never be answered, a riddle that haunts the darkest corners of the Imperium's most sacred halls. And perhaps, in the end, that's for the best. When you talk about the Golden Throne, it's impossible to ignore the towering, silent figures who stand watch over it, the Adeptus Custodes. These are not just bodyguards or ceremonial warriors. They are the Emperor's chosen, his most loyal servants, the living embodiment of his will. They are the 10,000, each one a demigod in his own right, a warrior of unmatched strength, skill, and dedication. But what truly sets them apart is their knowledge. Unlike the common soldiers of the Imperial Guard, or even the mighty Space Marines, the custodians have walked the halls of the Imperial Palace for thousands of years. They have seen things that would drive lesser men to madness, heard whispers in the darkened corridors of the throne room that would chill the blood of even the most hardened inquisitor. There's a theory, whispered in the shadowed halls of the Mechanicum and among the more paranoid members of the Inquisition, that the custodians know far more about the true nature of the throne than they let on. After all, they were there when it was first activated, when the Emperor made his final sacrifice to bind himself to its iron heart. They have watched over it for millennia, their eyes ever vigilant for the slightest hint of danger, their ears attuned to the faintest whisper of heresy. If anyone understands the true purpose of the throne, the dark secrets that lie at its core, it's the custodians. Some say that the custodians' loyalty to the Emperor is not born of blind faith, but of terrible knowledge. They know what lies beneath the golden armor and shining blades, the dark truths that the Emperor himself sought to hide from the rest of humanity. Perhaps they have glimpsed the twisted machinery that keeps him alive, felt the psychic weight of his tortured soul as it echoes through the hallowed halls of the throne room. Maybe they have even heard his whispers in the long, lonely nights, his half-mad mutterings as he clings to life in the heart of his crumbling empire. It's been suggested that the custodian's eternal vigil is not just a matter of duty, but a desperate, unending battle to contain the Emperor's immense psychic power, to prevent it from spilling out into the material world and consuming everything in its path. If the throne truly is a warp gate, a portal to the immaterium, then the custodians are not just guarding their master's withered, half-dead body. They are standing watch over the most dangerous doorway in the galaxy, a gateway that could unleash a tide of madness and destruction that would make the Horus Heresy look like a minor skirmish. And then there's the matter of the blood games. This ancient, secretive tradition sees the custodians turning their blades and their cunning against each other, testing the defenses of the Imperial Palace in an endless series of feints, ambushes, and simulated betrayals. They do this not out of paranoia, but because they know that even the slightest crack in their vigilance could spell disaster for the entire Imperium. They know that if the throne fails, if the Emperor's will falters for even a moment, the galaxy itself could be plunged into a nightmare from which it might never recover. There are also whispers of darker rituals, secret rites performed deep within the palace, away from the prying eyes of the ecclesiarchy and the Inquisition. Some say that the custodians, in their endless quest to protect their master, have dabbled in forbidden knowledge, that they have sacrificed their own humanity in order to stand watch over a god who may be more prisoner than king. Perhaps they have even made pacts with the dying spirit of the Emperor himself, binding their souls to his in a grim, unbreakable covenant of blood and fire. But perhaps the most chilling possibility is that the custodians are not just protecting the Emperor, but containing him. They may know that their master, for all his godlike power and unmatched wisdom, has become something less than human, a being of pure psychic rage and desperation, bound to the throne like a caged beast. If that's true, then the custodians are not just his guardians, but his jailers, the last line of defense against a force that could tear the galaxy apart if it ever broke free. In the end, the custodians are as much a part of the throne as the iron cables and rusting metal that bind their master to his fate. They are the silent, golden shadows that watch over his every breath, the unbreakable blades that stand between humanity and the darkness beyond. And as long as they stand watch, the throne will remain a fortress, a prison, and perhaps a ticking time bomb waiting for the day when its secrets can no longer be contained. When you start thinking about the Golden Throne as more than just a machine, when you start to consider it as a psychic construct, a device that reaches into the heart of the immaterium itself, you have to confront an uncomfortable truth. The Emperor, for all his godlike power, is still a psyker. And not just any psyker, but perhaps the most powerful one the galaxy has ever known. He's not just a warlord or a statesman, not just a leader of armies or a builder of empires. He's a being of raw, unchained psychic power, a creature whose mind burns with the strength of 1,000 suns. And that kind of power comes with a price. For one thing, the Emperor's connection to the throne must be an unimaginable burden. To maintain the Astronomicon, to project his will across the stars and guide the ships of the Imperium through the roiling madness of the warp, he has to pour a constant, unending stream of psychic energy into the throne. This isn't just a matter of flexing his mental muscles or concentrating really hard. It's a full-body, full-soul effort, a constant, unrelenting drain on his already shattered form. He's not just sitting on a throne of metal and bone. He's bound to a machine that demands his very essence, that consumes his thoughts, his memories, his dreams. And then there's the psychic feedback. Imagine for a moment what it must be like to have your mind stretched across an entire galaxy, to feel the hopes and fears of countless billions like a constant, unending scream in the back of your mind. Every moment, the Emperor must be bombarded with the raw, unfiltered emotions of his subjects, their desperate prayers, their terrified whispers, their agonized screams as they are torn apart by the horrors of the galaxy. And through it all, he has to maintain his focus, to keep the Astronomicon burning like a beacon in the endless void, to guide the ships of his Imperium safely through the storm without losing himself to the madness that surrounds him. But it's not just the voices of the living that haunt him. The Emperor, for all his power, cannot shield himself from the whispers of the warp itself. He must feel the howling, insidious presence of the Chaos Gods, their endless, mocking laughter as they watch him struggle to hold his crumbling empire together. He must hear the whispers of demons, the ghostly echoes of fallen heroes and broken worlds, the agonized wails of those who have been lost to the darkness. Every moment, every breath, every flicker of thought must be a battle to hold back the tide, to keep the madness at bay. And that's just the passive side of the equation. When the Emperor reaches out through the throne, when he projects his will into the warp, he's not just making a psychic phone call. He's tearing open a hole in the very fabric of reality, a hole that the demons of the warp would love nothing more than to tear wide open and use to claw their way into the material world. Every time he uses the throne to guide a ship through the immaterium, every time he burns a psyker's soul to fuel his great beacon, he's risking a catastrophic backlash, a psychic shockwave that could shatter his already fragile mind and send his spirit spiraling into the depths of the warp. This is the Emperor's great dilemma. He must use his power to hold his empire together, to shield humanity from the darkness that surrounds it. But in doing so, he risks becoming a part of that darkness himself. He risks losing himself to the very forces he seeks to control, to becoming something less than human, something twisted and monstrous, a creature of pure, unending rage and pain. And that's not just a philosophical problem. It's a very real, very immediate danger. If the Emperor ever loses control, if his mind ever snaps beneath the strain, the results would be catastrophic. The Astronomicon would flicker and die. The ships of the Imperium would be stranded in the darkness, cut off from one another by the screaming madness of the warp, and the galaxy itself would be thrown into chaos. It would be the end of everything, the final terrible collapse of human civilization into the abyss. So, the next time you see the Emperor's shattered form, bound to his iron throne, remember that he's not just a dying god clinging to life in the heart of his crumbling empire. He's a being of unimaginable power, a creature whose mind burns like a star, a warrior king fighting an endless, unwinnable battle against the darkness within his own soul. And every day, every moment, every heartbeat, he must make the choice to keep fighting, to keep holding back the tide, to keep his shattered empire from falling into the abyss. The throne room of the Imperial Palace is one of the most mysterious and heavily guarded places in the galaxy. It's a place shrouded in darkness and silence, a vast, echoing chamber where even the bravest warriors tread lightly and speak in whispers. It's a place of shadows and half-heard voices, where the air is thick with the smell of burning incense and the distant metallic tang of blood. And at its heart, towering above the cracked and broken marble of the throne dais, stands the Golden Throne itself, a monstrous, hulking mass of iron and bone and flickering light, its wires and cables stretching like the roots of a twisted, ancient tree deep into the foundations of the palace. There are countless rumors about what truly lies within the throne room, whispers of strange, otherworldly phenomena that defy the laws of physics and challenge the very nature of reality. Some say that the room itself is alive, a living, breathing thing that pulses with the Emperor's tortured psychic energy, its walls shivering with each ragged breath, its stones whispering the half-forgotten memories of a dying god. Others claim that the throne itself is a gateway, a portal to the immaterium that bleeds psychic energy into the surrounding air, warping the fabric of space and time like a star collapsing into a black hole. There are stories of shadows that move without light, of whispering voices that speak in 1,000 forgotten tongues, of sudden, inexplicable chills that sweep through the room like the touch of a long-dead hand. Some tech priests claim to have seen strange, flickering shapes in the corners of their vision, twisted, half-formed things that seem to vanish the moment you turn to look at them. They speak of walls that shift and breathe, of stairways that lead nowhere, and doors that open into nothingness, of strange, organic growths that pulse and twitch in the darkness like the flesh of some forgotten god. And then there's the matter of the custodians themselves. These silent golden giants who stand watch over the throne like living statues are said to be more than just guards. Some whisper that they are the keepers of forbidden knowledge, that they know secrets about the throne and its true purpose that would drive lesser men to madness. Perhaps they have seen things in the darkness of the throne room that no human mind should ever witness, felt the cold, oily touch of the warp as it leaks through the cracks in reality, heard the distant mocking laughter of the chaos gods as they press against the thin, cracking walls of the materium. But the strangest and most disturbing rumors are those that suggest the throne room is not just a place, but a portal, a doorway to other realities that stretches across the dimensions like a spider's web. Some believe that the throne itself is a kind of psychic anchor, a machine designed to hold the Emperor's mind in place while his soul drifts through the immaterium like a ghost lost in the storm. They say that the walls of the throne room are thin, that the boundaries between worlds are stretched to the breaking point, that the air itself crackles with the tension of 1,000 unseen forces straining against the thin, fraying fabric of reality. There are even darker whispers, hints of ancient forbidden rituals performed in the shadowed corners of the room, rites of blood and fire designed to bind the Emperor's soul to his broken body, to keep his shattered mind from slipping into the abyss. Some say that the custodians themselves have made sacrifices to the throne, that they have given up their own humanity in order to stand watch over a god who may be more monster than man. Perhaps they have even heard the Emperor's whispers, his half-mad mutterings as he struggles to hold back the tide of darkness that threatens to consume his soul. But for all the fear and mystery that surrounds the throne room, for all the whispers and half-truths that cling to its ancient walls like cobwebs, one thing is certain. It is a place of power, a place where the boundaries between the real and the unreal blur and break, where the laws of physics twist and shatter like glass. It is a place where the will of a dying god holds back the darkness, where the echoes of a forgotten past whisper through the shadows, where the very fabric of reality trembles beneath the weight of a power that defies comprehension. And as long as the Emperor remains bound to his Iron Throne, as long as his shattered mind continues to burn like a dying star in the heart of his crumbling empire, the throne room will remain a place of terror and mystery, a dark, forbidden place where the light of reason falters and the shadows grow long. You said, Molodets prodowzui. Justina 11, Fan Theories and Speculations. Ogliad fanackich teorii pro sprawdzenie przyznakenia tronu, wykluczający możliwość jego wykorzystania u majbutnemu dla wychodu za межи czasu i prostoru, cienkiej symbolów. Не пиши під теми і не виділяй віджірничі курсів. Пам'ятай стиль твого перекацу має бути гуманізованим, тобто не сухі факти, а ніби авторська розповідь фаната. Щоб були якісь емоції, оцінки, аналіз, ставлення до цього і теді. Розказуй теорії та думки інших фанатів про це питання. Не пиши римські цифри, а пиши словами. Ангел, якщо будуть цифри, то прописуй їх словами. Не пиши слово далі в кінці. Ти інколи пишеш в кінці розділів один і той самий абзац, не треба це робити. Але слідкуй за тим, що було 5000 символів в розділі. ChatGPT said, when it comes to the Golden Throne, the theories about its true purpose are as varied and wild as the Imperium itself. Over the centuries, countless scholars, tech priests, and madmen have tried to unravel the secrets of this colossal machine, to peer into the mind of the Emperor and understand what he truly intended when he first built it. Some of these theories are grounded in hard science and ancient lore, while others border on the insane, the fevered ravings of men driven mad by the whispering darkness of the warp. But for all their differences, these theories share one common thread: the belief that the throne is far more than just a life support system, far more than just a control console for the human webway. It is a machine of unimaginable power, a device that defies the very laws of reality, a weapon that could reshape the galaxy itself if fully unleashed. One of the most popular theories is that the throne is a time machine, a device capable of bending the flow of time and space to the will of its master. This idea is rooted in the strange, almost organic nature of the throne's design, the way its circuits seem to pulse and twitch with a life of their own, the way its systems defy conventional understanding of physics and engineering. Some believe that the Emperor, in his infinite wisdom, designed the throne as a kind of temporal anchor, a machine that allows him to reach through the fabric of time itself, to bend the past, present, and future to his will. Others take this idea even further, suggesting that the throne is not just a time machine, but a portal to other realities, a gateway to parallel dimensions where the laws of physics twist and shatter like glass. They argue that the Emperor, in his endless quest for knowledge and power, sought to break free from the constraints of linear time, to step outside the boundaries of the material universe and glimpse the hidden truths that lie beyond. Perhaps the throne was meant to be his final, greatest weapon, a device that would allow him to travel through time and space, to rewrite history itself and bend the galaxy to his will. There are even darker theories, ideas that suggest the throne is not just a machine, but a living, sentient being, a creature of metal and bone and flickering light that feeds on the Emperor's psychic power like a parasite clinging to the soul of a dying god. These theorists argue that the throne is not just a passive device, but an active participant in the Emperor's fate, a creature that has grown stronger over the millennia, feeding on the psychic energy of its master and warping the fabric of reality around it. If this is true, then the throne is not just a machine, but a monster, a creature of nightmare and madness that has trapped the Emperor in its iron embrace, feeding on his suffering and growing ever more powerful with each passing century. And then there are those who believe that the throne is a prison, a cage designed to hold the Emperor's soul in place, to keep him from breaking free and unleashing his full power upon the galaxy. They argue that the Emperor, for all his godlike might, is still a creature of flesh and blood, a being bound by the laws of physics and the constraints of his own mortal body. But if he were ever to break free from the throne, if he were ever to shed his broken, withered form and ascend to true godhood, the results would be catastrophic. The galaxy itself would tremble beneath his wrath, the stars would burn with his fury, and the chaos gods themselves would quake in terror at his coming. Of course, there are also those who take a more hopeful view of the throne's purpose. They argue that the Emperor, for all his flaws and failings, is still a being of unimaginable wisdom and foresight, a warrior king who has always planned for the long game, a master strategist who has laid the foundations for a final apocalyptic victory over the forces of darkness. Perhaps the throne is not just a machine, but a weapon, a device that will one day allow the Emperor to return from the brink of death, to rise from his iron throne and lead his people to a final glorious victory over the darkness that surrounds them. And then there are the truly radical theories, the ideas that push the boundaries of even the most fanatical imperial doctrine. Some believe that the throne is a doorway, a portal to a place beyond time and space, a place where the Emperor's mind has wandered for 10,000 years, shaping the fate of the galaxy from beyond the veil of reality. Perhaps the Emperor, in his endless quest for knowledge and power, has transcended the limitations of his broken body, become something more than human, a being of pure thought and will, who watches over his people from the shadows, guiding their fates with a hand of iron and a mind of fire. In the end, the truth of the throne's purpose may never be known. It is a machine of impossible complexity, a relic of a forgotten age, a monument to the boundless ambition and unyielding will of the greatest being ever to walk the stars. And as long as it stands, as long as the Emperor remains bound to its iron heart, the galaxy will remain a place of mystery and wonder, a place where the line between science and magic blurs and shatters like glass, a place where the whispers of the throne echo through the darkness like the dying breath of a forgotten god. The Golden Throne stands as one of the greatest mysteries in the galaxy, a relic of a forgotten age, a monument to the boundless ambition and terrifying power of the Emperor of mankind. It's a machine that defies logic and reason, a device that transcends the boundaries of science and magic, a construct that pulses with the tortured echoes of a god's shattered mind. It is a symbol of humanity's greatest triumphs and its darkest failures, a reminder of the terrible cost of empire and a promise of a future that might never come. For 10,000 years, the Emperor has remained bound to this iron throne, his broken body chained to a machine that feeds on the lives of 1,000 psychers each day, his mind stretched across the void like a living web of raw, unfiltered psychic power. He has become a god in truth, a being of unimaginable strength and boundless rage, a creature of fire and shadow who holds the fate of an entire galaxy in his dying hands. But even now, even in his shattered, half-dead state, he remains a force to be reckoned with, a warrior king whose will burns like a star in the darkness, whose dreams shape the fate of empires, whose whispers echo through the shadows of 1,000 forgotten worlds. And yet, for all its power, the throne remains a mystery, a machine of impossible complexity whose true purpose has been lost to the ages, whose secrets lie buried beneath 10,000 years of blood and fire and madness. Perhaps it is a time machine, a device that will one day allow the Emperor to rise from his iron tomb and lead his people to a final apocalyptic victory over the darkness that surrounds them. Perhaps it is a portal, a doorway to other realities that stretches across the dimensions like a spider's web, a gateway to a place beyond time and space where the Emperor's mind has wandered for millennia, shaping the fate of the galaxy from the shadows. Or perhaps it is a prison, a cage designed to hold his fractured soul in place, to bind him to the material world even as his body crumbles to dust. But whatever its true purpose, one thing is certain. The throne is a weapon, a machine of unimaginable power and boundless potential, a relic of a forgotten age whose secrets could change the course of history itself. It is a beacon of hope and a harbinger of doom, a symbol of humanity's greatest triumphs and its darkest fears, a reminder that even the mightiest of gods can be brought low by the weight of their own ambition. And as long as the Emperor remains bound to his iron throne, as long as his shattered mind continues to burn like a dying star in the heart of his crumbling empire, the galaxy will remain a place of mystery and wonder, a place where the line between science and magic blurs and shatters like glass, a place where the whispers of the throne echo through the darkness like the dying breath of a forgotten god. The throne room is a place of whispers and shadows, a vast echoing chamber where the air itself seems to thrum with the weight of 1,000 unspoken secrets. For those few who have been allowed to enter this sacred, forbidden space, the experience is often described as overwhelming, a sensory assault that leaves even the bravest warriors shaken and unsteady. The flickering lights, the cold, metallic tang of blood in the air, the distant hum of ancient machinery, it all combines to create an atmosphere that feels more like a tomb than the heart of a living empire. But for some, the strangest and most disturbing part of the throne room is not what they can see or smell, but what they can hear. There are stories whispered among the lower ranks of the Adeptus Mechanicus and the more superstitious members of the Imperial Guard, of ghostly voices that echo through the darkness of the throne room, half-heard murmurs that seem to drift on the stale, recycled air like the whispers of the dead. Some say that these voices are the echoes of the thousands of psychers who have given their lives to power the throne, their souls trapped forever in the twisted circuits and rusting cables of the ancient machine. Others believe that they are the dying screams of long-forgotten heroes, warriors who fell in the Emperor's name and whose final, desperate cries have been etched into the very walls of the palace, their pain and fury preserved for all eternity in the cold, unfeeling metal of the throne. But the most unsettling theory is that these whispers are not the voices of the dead at all, but the thoughts of the Emperor himself, his shattered mind stretching out across the galaxy, searching for some echo of the past, some reminder of the life he once led. Perhaps in the long, lonely millennia since the Horus Heresy, the Emperor has begun to lose his grip on reality, his mind fragmenting under the strain of 10,000 years of isolation and agony. Perhaps he has begun to speak to the ghosts of his past, to the memories of the sons he once loved and the worlds he once ruled, his thoughts echoing through the darkened halls of the throne room like the dying breath of a forgotten god. And then there are the truly disturbing rumors, the stories that make even the most hardened warriors of the Adeptus Custodes pause and glance nervously over their shoulders as they stand their eternal vigil. Some say that the Emperor, in his shattered, half-dead state, has become something less than human, that his soul has splintered into 1,000 twisted, broken fragments, each one a ghost in its own right, a flickering, half-formed echo of the man he once was. They claim that these fragments whisper to one another in the darkness, their voices blending into a constant, maddening chorus that echoes through the throne room like the howling of a distant storm. There are even whispers that the throne itself has become a kind of psychic amplifier, a machine that magnifies the Emperor's thoughts and projects them into the surrounding air like the ripples of a stone dropped into a still pond. If that's true, then the throne room is not just a place of death and darkness, but a living, breathing thing, a machine of impossible complexity that feeds on the minds of the dead and the dying, twisting their final thoughts into an endless, echoing scream that reverberates through the darkness like the tolling of a funeral bell. Of course, it's possible that all of this is just superstition, the fevered ravings of men driven mad by the constant, oppressive presence of the warp, the dark, whispering madness that seeps into every corner of the galaxy and twists even the strongest minds into madness. But there's something about the throne room, something that defies logic and reason, something that feels ancient and alien, something that seems to breathe and shiver in the darkness like a living thing. It's a place where the past and the present blur together, where the echoes of forgotten battles and shattered dreams hang in the air like the smoke from a burning world, where the ghosts of the dead whisper their secrets to the living and the line between life and death is stretched thin enough to snap. In the end, the throne room is a place of shadows and whispers, a place where the boundaries between the real and the unreal blur and shatter like glass, a place where the echoes of the past cling to the walls like cobwebs and the whispers of forgotten gods echo through the darkness like the dying breath of a forgotten world. It is a place of madness and terror, a place where even the strongest souls can be broken, a place where the dead do not rest and the living walk in fear of the shadows that dance on the edge of their vision. And as long as the Emperor remains bound to his iron throne, as long as his shattered mind continues to burn like a dying star in the heart of his crumbling empire, the throne room will remain a place of mystery and fear, a dark, forbidden place where the whispers of the dead echo through the darkness like the last dying breath of a forgotten god. There's a darker theory about the Golden Throne, one that's whispered in the shadowed corners of the galaxy, among the more cynical inquisitors and the half-mad tech priests who dare to question the official doctrines of the Mechanicum. It's a theory that paints the Emperor not as a perfect, all-knowing god, but as a desperate, cornered warlord, a being who, in his final moments, reached out into the darkness and made a terrible, desperate bargain with the very forces he had spent his entire existence trying to destroy. Imagine for a moment the final battle of the Horus Heresy. Terra is burning. The sky is black with the smoke of burning worlds. The screams of the dying echo through the shattered halls of the Imperial Palace, and the Emperor stands alone against his greatest creation, his beloved son turned monster Horus. It's a battle that has been told and retold 1,000 times, a story of betrayal and blood, of brother turning against brother, of a god brought low by his own hubris. But what if there's more to this story than we've been told? What if, in that final desperate moment, as the Emperor felt his flesh crack and his bones shatter beneath the fury of Horus's warhammer, he realized that he couldn't win this fight alone? What if, in that moment of despair, he reached out into the darkness and made a pact with the very forces he had sworn to destroy? It's a terrifying thought, but not an impossible one. The Emperor, for all his power, was still a creature of flesh and blood, a being bound by the laws of physics and the limits of his own mortal form. He must have known, in that final, desperate moment, that he was facing a power greater than even he could overcome, a force of pure, unbridled chaos, a being fueled by the hatred and madness of the warp itself. And perhaps, in that moment, he made a choice, a terrible, desperate choice to reach out into the darkness and forge a pact with the very thing he had spent his entire existence fighting against. But what kind of bargain could the Emperor have struck with the forces of the warp? What price would he have paid to save his people, to bind his shattered soul to the iron heart of the Golden Throne, to hold back the darkness for 10,000 years? Perhaps he offered his own soul as a sacrifice, a living, burning thing that would fuel the throne for millennia, a beacon of hope and despair that would guide his people through the darkness even as it slowly consumed him from within. Or perhaps he offered something even darker, a piece of his own divine essence, a fragment of his godlike power, a sliver of his soul that would one day awaken and rise from the ashes of his broken, shattered form. There are those who whisper that the throne itself is a kind of prison, not just for the Emperor's physical body, but for his very soul, a cage of iron and bone that binds him to the material world, even as his spirit drifts through the immaterium like a ghost lost in the storm. They say that the throne is a living thing, a creature of metal and blood and flickering light, a machine that feeds on the souls of the dead and the dying, a hungry, grasping thing that clings to the Emperor's soul like a parasite, feeding on his suffering and growing ever more powerful with each passing century. And then there's the matter of the Astronomicon, the great psychic beacon that guides the ships of the Imperium through the roiling madness of the warp. Some say that this too is part of the Emperor's dark bargain, a deal struck with the forces of the Immaterium to bind his soul to the material world, to hold his shattered body in place, even as his mind drifts through the shadows of the warp. Perhaps the Astronomicon is not just a beacon of hope, but a prison, a chain that binds the Emperor's soul to the material world even as it slowly consumes him from within, burning his essence to fuel its flickering light. Of course, all of this is just speculation, the fevered ravings of madmen and heretics, the half-whispered nightmares of those who have looked too long into the darkness of the immaterium and felt it staring back at them. But it's a disturbing thought, one that raises uncomfortable questions about the true nature of the Emperor and the price he was willing to pay to save his people. If the throne truly is a dark bargain, a pact struck with the forces of the warp in a moment of desperation and despair, then what does that say about the future of the Imperium? What does it say about the man who sits upon the throne, the shattered, broken god who clings to life in the heart of his crumbling empire? And perhaps, in the end, that's the greatest mystery of all. Not what the throne is, or how it works, or what dark secrets it hides within its iron heart, but what it truly cost the Emperor to bind his soul to this monstrous, flickering machine, to chain himself to a throne of iron and fire and blood for 10,000 years, to hold back the darkness even as it slowly consumes him from within. Because if the Emperor truly did make a bargain with the forces of the warp, if he truly did strike a deal with the darkness to save his people, then what hope does humanity have of escaping the shadows that surround it, of breaking free from the iron chains of the past and stepping into the light of a new, brighter future? So if you've made it this far, if you've listened to these tales of ancient machines and forgotten gods, if you felt the cold, oily touch of the throne's twisted circuits and heard the distant, mocking laughter of the warp, then you owe it to yourself to keep asking questions, to keep searching for the truth, to keep pushing back the darkness that surrounds us all. Because in the end, the only thing more dangerous than the throne itself is the fear of what it might truly be, the terror of what lies hidden in its rusted, flickering heart. And if you want to keep exploring these dark, forbidden corners of the galaxy, if you want to keep diving into the mysteries of the throne and the secrets of the Emperor, then make sure to subscribe, because there's always another story to tell, another secret to uncover, another shadow to chase.